Sarah, your career and leadership expert. I'm doing my first live of the year. Sorry about the funny old light in here. It's, let me just see if I can turn that off. It's a bit bright. All my lights have gone in my house. Oh, actually, that's even worse. So, oh no, it won't turn back on again. So all the lights have gone in my house. So that's my first challenge of the year. But anyway, I just wanted to do a video. I do owe you a couple of videos, I think, because I didn't manage to finish them off before the Christmas break. But this one is a short video, really all about how we can look at what goals are versus intentions versus resolutions, because it is that time of year, isn't it, where people tend to set resolutions and decide what they want to do for the year. So excuse me a minute, I'm just going to get a cushion to sit on because I feel like I'm a bit low. There we go. Anyway, so this is all about resolutions versus intentions versus goals. Okay, so I'm just going to walk through what the differences are, because we hear different words bandied about. Let's start off with the big one, because it is that time of year. Let's talk about resolutions. So many of us will go, do you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to stop doing that, by means of setting a New Year's resolution. And sometimes, very often, I don't know how many of you can recognise that maybe you've tried to do something, you've set a resolution, and you know what, it just hasn't come to anything. So very often we set resolutions and they fail. I'm sure we've all been there. I've done it, you've done it, I'm sure everyone's done it. Why is that? So there's loads and loads and loads of different reasons, but I'm going to give you a few here. Sometimes we feel obligated or forced to, whether that's by others or ourselves, like we feel forced to go out New Year's Eve, even though we couldn't this year. You know, sometimes it feels a bit forced. It doesn't feel quite right. It's almost like we've pulled it out of thin air. We feel like we have to say something, so we just say, do you know what, I'm going to do this. And it's very like all or nothing type thinking, which isn't always the best way to go. And very often, because we've said it, and maybe we've said it in other people, it's like, right, I better do something. But unfortunately, we've not set it up in a way for that burst of motivation to last. Because, I mean, obviously, we've got to be realistic with what we're trying to achieve, because real life can get in the way of other things. So it's very often something that's out of thin air. You might have been thinking about it a little while, but a resolution can sort of burst out of nowhere, have a bit of motivation for a while, and then we stop. So there are different ways of going about how we achieve things in life. The problem is with resolutions is that we have habits. We all have habits that we're conditioned to do. Some that we're aware of, some that we're not aware of. So we need to form a new habit to enact a resolution or a goal or whatever it is. And forming a new habit takes time. So you need to notice what the old habit is and then build in a new habit. So for example, if you set, say you New Year's Eve, you set a resolution and said, I want to be more healthy. That's really kind of vague. But you might say, okay, well, I'm going to be more healthy. I'm going to have a smoothie every day. So you might have had smoothies now and again, but you need to build the habit of having that smoothie every day. I'm just using that as an example. And you need to make that new habit really easy for you. So for example, it may well be, if you are going to have a smoothie every day, you get the ingredients ready the night before. They're all out there ready, waiting, and that is a new habit that you form. And a habit just becomes like autopilot after a certain amount of time. I think they say after 30 days. So we've got to make it easy for ourselves. So how can I make that easy for myself? You know, if I'm going to have that smoothie every day, having it all ready, buying the ingredients, planning the ingredients. You know, I know that sounds really small, but actually things like that do take time and effort, and we have to build in new habits. So, you know, that's something to think about. We need to recondition ourselves to really sort of be committed to have that smoothie every day, do the shopping, do the preparation, and then have those habits, you know, of having the ingredients ready, for example, or buying a nice glass for it so it's there ready for you, making it really easy for you to kind of have that resolution working for you. And sometimes what happens with resolutions, they are not specific enough. So it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to do this, I'm going to do that. Whereas if we're setting, really, what we need to be doing is setting goals. And the thing is with goals is that they need to be very, very specific. They need to have a time time period, like an end point, a destination that you're trying to get to. So it needs to be much more specific. So I want to be more healthy is not really that specific. So what we need to do is say, well, okay, I want to be able to, I don't know, run up and down the stairs 10 times by the end of the month without feeling out of breath. You know, that's just a simple example. Or it might be, I want to reach my ideal weight of, I don't know, 9 stone by X. Now, the thing is with resolutions, sometimes, again, the way we phrase it, it's negative. So it's like, do you know what? I'm going to give up chocolate. Do you know what? I'm going to give up alcohol. Now, actually, that's quite a negative kind of way of imprinting that resolution into our mind. So our brain just kind of clings on to the negative of like, I'm going to give up, I'm going to give up. Because human brains are actually more wired to pick out negative phrasing rather than positive phrasing. That's why positive affirmations, positive self-talk is so important to override that negativity bias that we have. So sometimes our resolutions can be phrased really negatively, but with a goal, it's very specific, it's formed in the positive, and it's leading you to a destination. Okay, now there are some key things about goals, and again, you'll see why, if you listen to the start of the video, why resolutions are so different. You have to look at what's working in your life and what's not working and what you want to change. And this isn't about what other people want you to do. This is about what you want to do. You've got to be motivated to do it. And actually, this is where our own personal values can come into play. Because if you're somebody whose value is, I don't know, social contribution, then maybe one of your goals is going to be like, well, during lockdown, how can I give more to societies and causes that I feel deeply about? Do you know what I mean? It's got to be something that you feel is really important to you in life. So, for example, if somebody said to me, or I decided, I don't know, I want to eat more healthily, therefore I'm going to cook more home-cooked meals. Now, for me, cooking and preparation of food isn't something that's massively important to me. I eat healthily, I eat well, but I keep it really, really simple. So I'm going to go, do you know what? I just don't really enjoy cooking that much. Do you know what I mean? I still eat well, I eat properly, but there are other things that I value, like reading books or listening to workshops that other people might be, well, God, why do you want to listen to workshops and read all these books? It's because I like educating myself. I like exploring ideas. And to me, that's more important. Sometimes that's always going to take priority over being in the kitchen and cooking a meal. It's different for everybody. It's not about being judgmental. So it's got to be something that you want to do and on some level ties into your personal values. You've got to think about what the end result is and really step into like, what's that going to feel like? What am I going to look like? What can I see happening? How's my life going to change for the better when I achieve that goal? And really try and visualise that and get that in your mind. Goals always need to be ethical. I'm just going to say that now. It might sound obvious, but if you want to say, I'm going to be financially wealthy, I'm going to have X amount of money by this point in time, and your baby step to achieve that goal is to go and rob a bank, clearly that's not ethical. So a bit of an extreme example, but it's got to be something that's ethical to your own values. And I would also say, similar to the example I've just given, it relates to your personal values. So if you're somebody that doesn't like exercise, then maybe getting fit and healthy, there's another way in which you can get fit and healthy. Perhaps it's like, do you know what, I'm really love animals and nature. Right, okay, I'm going to do dog walking. And maybe that's the way that you get fit and healthy, because it aligns to your personal values, those sort of things that you hold really, really important and makes you who you are, okay? So we've got to have a time limit on it. It's got to be time bound. We can have, some people have 10-year goals, 5-year goals, etc. I've got 5-year goals, they're over here on my board, and I've got 1-year goals, and then I break them down month by month and then week by week. So sometimes life gets in the way, so don't beat yourself up if life gets in the way and you don't achieve everything you need to do. Life isn't a business plan, and we're all going through a bit of a weird experience at the moment, so be kind to yourself. Make sure you're enjoying this process. Let's not make life a business project, you know. So by all means, if you're determined, you want to go for it, go, 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 but make sure you're not sort of draining yourself too much with your goal. And it's got to be realistic. It's got to be realistic to you. If it doesn't feel realistic, the chances are you're not going to achieve that goal. On the other hand, you might start working towards a goal, and then you will find that actually, I can do a bit, hi Toby, I can do a bit more towards this goal than I thought. So say, for example, you decided, well, I'm going to try and run a half marathon by, I don't know, June, something like that. And you get part way through that goal and it's like, do you know what, I'm enjoying this more than I thought. I think I can go further. So you can expand your goals along the way once you've achieved your first step, or even just go, do you know what, I'm going to adapt that goal. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Maybe I was underestimating myself. But by the same token, if we start working on a goal and you think, do you know what, this is the end result that I want, this is what I can see working for me, and this is how I can see this playing out. Sometimes we learn things along the way from other people, from the knowledge we acquire, from, you know, we might find that we really thought we wanted something and it looked like this, but actually it looks a bit more like this. So let's not cling on to the goals too much. You can adapt and evolve them. So those are just some few tips there on your goal setting for the year. And you can see that that's very different to resolutions. You know, resolutions seem very much about giving something up. They can be quite spur of the moment. Maybe you have thought about it a while, but it's just, you know what, I'm just saying this in the moment and I've plucked it out of thin air. And there is a lot of sort of habit reconditioning that we need to tell ourselves. Now, the other thing that you can do, I'm going back to resolutions now. If there is something you do want to stick, it's almost, I would suggest writing out your current story. So if it is something around running and getting healthy, then you've got to face your current reality and write your own story, write it down. Let me give you another example. So say, for example, your resolution is, I want to have less stress in my life. We've got to really step into why you've got so much stress and why that's important to you now. So write your story and say, okay, what I find is Fred, I'm not called Fred, by the way, you know, Fred, myself or Sarah, you know, I find that I'm arguing a lot with people. I find that what I always have to do is get my point across, and what I find is that leads to a lot of stress. Or, you know, I find that I can't speak to my boss at work. I'm just taking all the work that comes to me. I'm not setting boundaries or deadlines with that work or having a discussion with my boss. Therefore, I'm really stressed and I find it really, really hard to switch off that stress when I get home from work. And when I don't switch off that stress when I get back from work, although we're working at home, even worse, nightmare, then I take that out on my kids and my partner. So if you do want to go down the resolution route, write the story, write out your story and just have a look at it in detail. And then what you need to do is almost tell yourself a new story. So if it is your resolution and your resolution is, I want to be more stressed, because we have to step into like the old story of what we're doing at the moment that's holding us back, because we all do stuff that kind of helps to create situations in our life. And that's not about being blamey, but for example, I don't know, maybe you've chosen a partner that can't communicate with you properly and is a bit defensive. Maybe you are in a job where, you know, you're doing the job of two people and you haven't addressed that. This isn't about blaming, but we've got to step into the old story, really acknowledge it, so we can pick out those nuggets of information and say, right, okay, I get it. This is how this might be happening for me, to me, you know, how I'm doing it to myself in a way. Because when you start writing that story, you'll see, hang on a minute, I'm starting to notice some patterns. Writing things down is a really good way of liberating, you know, thoughts that are trapped in our mind or maybe swirling around and we can't really process them, because then we can look at them in front of us objectively and think, oh wow, hang on a minute, yeah, do you know what, when I come home, say it's a fitness resolution, you know, you could say, Sarah comes home and eats 2 Mars bars every day and then watches, I don't know, TV for the next 2 hours, and then she doesn't really get enough sleep or drink enough water. You know, and just, this isn't about being mean, but just really facing up to your current reality, and then write that new story about how your day might go, what you might do differently. Build that new story, because you've got to really step into what isn't working at the moment to really identify, well, okay, if that's the old me and that's what I've been doing to contribute towards that, what's the new story I'm going to tell myself? And then, you know, I would still suggest you build these into goals. And goals do not have to be like big, hairy, whopping goals. They could be something really, really simple, as in, you know, I don't know, I want to learn more about I don't know, philosophy or something. Well, I'm going to commit to reading a book about philosophy in the first 3 months of the year. Whatever feels right for you, especially at the moment when we're all kind of at home a lot. A lot of us got pressures of working from home, kids at home. Also, you know, perhaps if you're living on your own, that can have its own challenges. You might find, you know, that you need to spend time connecting with friends on Zoom. You know, perhaps that's a goal, you know, if you're feeling that way. You could have your lockdown goals, you know, how am I going to make the best of this situation that we're in? You know, I know when it happened the first time round, I certainly had my plan of attack for how I was going to deal with it and maintain my own health and well-being. So, you know, really convert those stories into your goals. And as I say, with resolutions, sometimes they're spur of the moment, thin air, they're negatively sort of stated, so it's not positive in a way that a goal is positive, you know. So have a think last year about, you know, what went well for you last year, what progress did you make in certain areas, what did you enjoy doing, what didn't you enjoy doing, what didn't go so well. Maybe just pick a few things. There's no right number, no wrong number. Some people can, you know, everybody's life is different. Some people can cope with goals in lots of areas in their life. If it's something particularly big, you might just want to have 1 or 2 big goals and just work on those. There are also maintenance goals that, say for example, you started out on a goal around health and fitness a few years ago. You might find now that you're in steady state with that goal, and actually what it is, you've just got your maintenance goals, which have actually become your new habits. And again, that links to resolutions, because if we're going to make resolutions and if we're going to make goals, we have to form a new habit. So if you want to get up and make that smoothie every day, what's the next baby step you need to do? Well, you need to have your ingredients, do your shopping, get the ingredients ready right there so it's ready for you, and build that new habit. So there's a lot to think about. So I'm more of a fan of setting goals, you know, putting a timeline on them. You know, that thing can shift, you know, because life is changing all the time, as we can see. I'm also a big fan of making them visible, whether that's as a screensaver, whether it's on your phone, however that works for you. I've got all my stuff on a notice board here, and I reflect on it every day. I look at it and go, well, how's that making me feel? Does that still feel realistic? And don't beat yourself up if it doesn't go quite the way that you wanted it to, because really the only thing that we can control or master is ourselves. We can influence other people, but sometimes when we're working on goals, we need help from other places, and that's where sometimes we can't always control other people. We can influence and make choices about the people we might choose to work with, for example, to help us get there. But it's, you know, this is all about baby steps. So, and that's the problem with resolutions. Sometimes it's just very, I'm going to do this, without the planning behind it, and make it fun. You know, this is supposed to be fun. You know, sometimes I think some of the self-development stuff, it sometimes needs to be serious, but let's enjoy it. Life is not a business plan or a business project. Let's make it fun. Let's enjoy it. Let's really celebrate those successes along the way. And then finally, I was going to touch on intentions, because sometimes I hear the word intentions used as well. So I've talked about goals, I've talked about resolutions for the new year, you know, how to really get your best chance of success going, what the differences are between the two. But intentions are things that are almost independent of a goal or our destination. Our goals, although they come from us internally, and I talked earlier about personal values and aligning to what's important to you in life, like health, fitness, relationship, love, romance, whatever it is, you know, wealth, you know, things that are important to you, although they generate from like our inside thinking and our planning, etc., these are things that we usually enact and carry out, whereas an intention is much more about how we relate to other people. It's much more about what's going on inside of us, you know, our internal dialogue, our internal world, you know. So it's not like it's a step of actions that we would take towards a goal. It's our way of being. It's our way of being and how we interact with other people. And actually, you know, so I've really covered it all tonight, goals, resolutions and intentions, but really think about those as well. Think about, wow, you know, do you know what? I feel like these meetings don't go really well, and I feel that I'm being a bit defensive, or so maybe set some intentions for yourself. Maybe it isn't about goals for you this year. Maybe it is about internal conduct. You can call it a goal or an intention, but your intention is really how you show up as a person, how you kind of believe about what you believe about yourself, and how you intend to really tackle every meeting. So you might say, that's just an example, you might say, do you know what, I'm going to stop looking at my iPhones during meetings and get distracted. I'm going to pay full attention. That's an intention that you set for your own internal personal conduct, the way that you interact with other people, which yes does then become external. So that's something to think about as well, because I think intentions don't really get enough attention. Oh, that was clever, wasn't it? Intentions don't always get enough attention, and sometimes we can sort of go about on autopilot and sort of act the same way that we've always acted. And that's where constructive criticism works really well. Not destructive criticism, but constructive, because it's like, oh, hang on a minute, someone's got a perception of me, maybe I need to course correct here, maybe I need to think about my tone of voice, my body language, how I'm showing up with people. So you can set intentions as well, and I think, you know, I love them because they're just a bit, you can play with them a bit, they're a bit softer, you know, but your goals are your specific actions that are going to be external actions you're going to carry out to reach a destination, whereas the intention is a state of being, how you generally show up. There isn't a time limit to it. You could turn it into a being goal if you want. I quite like the word intentions. So yeah, so that's what I've talked about this evening. Talked about resolutions. I'm sure we've seen lots of stuff about resolutions, but why they typically fail, what you can do to have the best chance of success for your resolution working. Talked about goals, how they're a bit different to resolutions, and again, how you can set yourself up for success in achieving those goals. And then I thought I'd dip into intentions because it doesn't get much press really, and that's really about really focusing on you internally, how you show up, how you interact with other people, how you come across to other people, and you know, what's inside of you and your relation and how you conduct relationships to other people. So these are all things worth looking at. Obviously, as a coach, I'm going to be a believer in goals, but don't go crazy. Don't go, you know, over the top with them if you feel like, you know, it doesn't have to be anything huge at all. It can be a very simple goal. They can shift and adapt along the way, because, I mean, let's face it, that's all we're doing at the moment, is adapting and shifting to what's going on in the world. So hopefully we've got a bit of good practice behind us. But yeah, make sure, whatever you do, make sure it's realistic though. Because sometimes when we try and do something that's a little bit out of our comfort zone, that inner critic will go, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. We do have to work with that and reframe that thinking to think, hang on a minute, I feel like that right now, but I am going to make progress. I am a person that is making progress to my goals, for example. We do have to work with the inner critic. But if it feels like such a massive goal, you're never going to achieve it, then we really need to think about breaking those down into baby steps, because if it's too unrealistic, our brain goes, yeah, we're never going to do that, come on, are you having a laugh, you know? So we need to break them down a bit more. So there you go, bit of a walkthrough for the first week of the year, about resolutions, intentions and goals. And by all means, you know, if you want any tools or techniques to help you with the subjects that I've covered tonight, please get in touch. And if there's particular subjects you want me to cover on another live, then drop me a line, drop me a direct message, and I'll catch you all soon. Thanks for listening, take care, bye.